Oba Ewedo personally led his troops to the Battle of Ekiokpagha in 1252 AD. The ruling third generation of Ogiamen legacy, using his Aliha which he created. Ogiamen instigated the battle through years of provocation during which he did all he could, not only to ridicule the monarchy, but by physical and violent activities, to galvanize and propel his anti-royalist forces to force citizens to join their movement or face consequences of pain or death. Oba Ewedo decided to put a stop to the situation. He had commissioned Ogiamen of Albuya, Inyarsa and Waiting, to raise fighting troops which at this time were made up solidly of men from Albuya, Hubohar, Arlarkar and Huselu, with their iron weaponry. The royal guards from Insi and Wenro were also available and ready for the do-or-die battle. They gathered at the center of the plains of Hugbokar under the shades of the tall Okpagar trees. While the main body of the troops, headed by the royal guards, waited with the Oba at the appointed battlegrounds. Ogiamen took an advanced contingent of the troops and moved southwards along the Hutantan Road, the present Sikpanba Road, towards the concentration of the Ogiamen forces led by Aliha Ogiamen. The inevitable clash, therefore, occurred at Hunuweru, where the Ogiamen troops, which had started moving northwards, encountered the Oba's contingent. The battle began. It was fierce, it was bloody, but it did not take too long before the Ogiamen war general, Aliha Ogiamen, the first of the known major victims of the battle, fell. The Ogiamen troops, on seeing the Ogiamen contingent, felt deceived. They perhaps thought that it was all there were of the Oba's troops, and decided to overwhelm them. But this was the core of the troops Inyarsa Ogiamen had trained for the previous 4 years and were properly armed and well instructed on what to do. Fighting close, they made easy inroad into the middle of the Ogiamen fighters, who seemed each to be on his own. It was not long before Aliha Ogiamen was mortally wounded. When this happened, and the men no longer had a stand-by leader, they capitulated and fled. Many of them were captured and later held in Oba Ewedo prison, in the location of the present-day prison yard. Ewedo actually from then on became the Benin name for a prison house. Aliha Ogiamen's head was severed and taken to the Oba with a handful of Ogiamen's disenchanted soldiers, with Ogiamen himself in tow. The Treaty of Ekiokpagha which followed was largely dictated by Kwa Ewedo, with Inyarsa Ogiamen and the Uzama, kingmakers, in attendance. In status, the Ogiamen was made a member of the Huzama Nibiye, a subordinate group of chiefs to the Huzarmer. With his name, Ogiamen made the hereditary title therein, with all the traditional paraphernalia of the Huzarmer Nibiye chieftain, recognized with the authority of the Oba to hold sway on his behalf in the villages of Inboyanyan and Huomidunwo. He was to return with immediate effect the state stool, which they had removed from Agiso Owodo's palace when they began the arrogation of the leadership of Igoda Magodo powers to themselves. Then, recognition with respect to both the villages referred to above was a tribute to Elder Elvian Nuriebe, who was remembered then and always for frightening away the then man-eating monster, Osigan, from Elki Agiso Market, now Ekiokpagha, Market. The royalist troops, the Insienwero soldiers, were located nearby at Inboyanyan to enable them ensure that the terms of the Treaty of Ekiokpagha were forever maintained, and that Ogiamen's insurrection remained prescribed forever. The Ogiamen supporters who did not die in prison or in any other relevant circumstances hid themselves from public attention or migrated from the metropolis to other parts of Injaland. The Oba personally gave the Ogiamen the authority to live in Huhamwadunmu and Inboyanyan, not as Hainogi, Duke, so that he could not make permanent heritage claims on them. He was to be, and would be regarded thereafter as Huzarmer Nibiye, Huzarmer of the people, like any of the others of the group. The victory of the royal troops at the Battle of Ekiokpagha was a great relief to Oba Ewedo. He was pleased, therefore, to publicly confirm the title, Inyarsar, on Odigiyarabelbuya, as he had promised to do during the conferment some 4 years earlier as an encouragement during the preparations for the battle. After the event, anti-royalism died a natural death in Ewedo. Prince Abuabu and the Huzarmer, kingmakers. After the initial problems of his reign, Oba Ewedo settled down to rule as his father would have him do, to leave a reasonably peaceful Ewedo and a purposeful saddle of authority for his lineage. However, his eldest son, Abuabu, had been brought up in a military environment. He continued, therefore, the already inbuilt habit and tradition of controlling a group of military troops. The opportunity to lead his troops to fight arose again when the Benin traders to Arler, Inla, Market in Orogodo cried home in 1258 AD for protection against attackers on the trade route. Abuabu volunteered, as was his usual attitude, to lead his troops to Orogodo to help clear the menace. He discovered on arrival that the campaign was not as easy as he thought. He was, therefore, still there when his father passed on in 1280 AD. It was believed, however, that the crowning of Prince Agwadila soon after his father had joined his ancestors was rather precipitate. The Huzarmer, kingmakers, knew where Prince Abuabu was and they could have endeavored to reach him to ensure his early return. He was away leading some of their troops against errant warriors who had blocked the route to Ala Market. The warriors were making it difficult for Ewedo traders to obtain iron products for their expanding iron-making technology of the time, especially as the local sources of iron had begun to decline. Abuabu was a warlike prince, the first of the princes to demonstrate that kings could lead their troops to battle instead of waiting for their Inyarsar to do the fighting for them. He thus overstayed his return from Orogodo land, to discover when he returned that the Huzarmer had crowned his younger and less belligerent brother, the new king. It was rationalized that in the case of a disagreement which could just have ensued as a selfish fight therefrom, the Huzarmer would once again have found the opportunity to mount the settlement position which would water their possible political authority. The cooked-up conflict did not, however, materialize. Prince Abuabu showed great maturity and understanding of the situation. He left the troops and did not think it was helpful to the monarchy to do anything to upset the apple cart. He accepted what his brother offered him, the title and position of Ainobie, Duke of Arkbayama, and quietly settled there for the rest of his life. Oba Ewedo is known to have formalized the establishment of Ekiokpagha around the point on the Hutantan Road, where he waited for the victory news regarding the battle between his forces and the Ogiamen forces. The head of the Ogiamen war leader, along with Ogiamen himself, was brought to him there. There, he, Oba Ewedo, announced to Ogiamen his decisions following the battle, which became known as the Battle of Ekiokpagha. The decisions also later became known as the Treaty of Ekiokpagha, Okpagha Market. He as well established the Oba Market, slightly northeast of his palace at Arlarkar. He, however, did not live long enough to formalize the symbolic establishments of these markets. The Okpagha Market, however, started functioning soon after its establishment in the shades of the Okpagha trees and functioned till the reign of Oba Akenzu II, 1933 to 1979. The Oba Market actually started functioning during the reign of Oba Orhan. Ewedo was a man of swift and purposeful action. Within 1 year of his ascension to the throne, he had moved his seat to his newly built palace at Arlarkar from Husarmer, thus moving the monarchy from the prying eyes of the Adian nobles. He was the first Oba to live there in the palace, which he built under the stress of dangerous circumstances, surrounded by anti-royalist forces. He had actually accomplished, as we have seen so far, his plan to put a stop to the Adians' position of, not only regarding the monarchy as primus inter pares, first among equals, he confined them to their principal duties as chiefs responsible for implementing the law of primogeniture. He thus put them in their place among the chiefs of the monarchy, and held them in permanent control. He eventually rid the kingdom of the menace of Ogiamen and his pretensions. Having thus consolidated the position of the monarchy, he went on to create the following chieftaincy titles in addition to the already existing Inyarser and Isagban, Huangwer, Ashadin, Huso, with the Nsekarer as one of the earliest functionaries. In the light of these activities and their results, one may venture to state that Oba Ewedo was principally responsible for the consolidation of the position of the Benin monarchy. He joined his ancestors in 1280 AD. Source: Uzama and Benin Monarchy, written by Chief Sam O. Inber, the Inyarser of Benin Kingdom. Edited and produced by Osiziron. Thanks for watching.